He's really hoping that Oprah reaches people who don't typically caucus, just to kind of bring them into the game. And he's saying, if I can get him there, as in something like this, if I can get him here, then I have a chance to try to win him over. So he believes it may have some kind of effect. Of course, what else is he going to say? I mean, when he gets this kind of endorsement. But if you have such a star like that, you can reach out to people who never caucus, then perhaps it could have some kind of effect. I still think that endorsements are made for the media, though. I don't know how much they really do.
I would say that if somebody doing the endorsing has in some way, I don't want to use the word control, that's too strict, but have some influence over some sort of material organizational resources. There are people you can get to convince to work for the person you're endorsing. There are people who can provide financial support. There are people who are connected with you can get to turn out for caucuses. So if that endorser has material resources like that, that would make a difference. But I think the mere fact of the endorsement by itself doesn't do much. With regard to super endorsement this weekend, I think that Oprah can sell Obama's books more easily than she can sell his candidacy. What she does, as I think Dave points out correctly, is furnish him potentially with an audience where he can make his pitch, people who may not have seen him in person otherwise. But simply by her waving her wand, that itself I don't think is going to say, well, gee, Oprah said it, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, but that's why she's giving everybody a Pontiac G6. to seal the deal.
I may have to go.
I was going to say something, but I don't think I can compete with that.
On the counter side of the endorsements, do you remember the choked him up and didn't even try my joke yet. The media made a big deal out of who would Sam Brownback endorse, if you remember this. And no disrespect to his people, but he clearly didn't have a lot of them in our state, or he'd still be running. And so he ended up going for John McCain, and we sat down with Huckabee earlier this week, and Huckabee, we had asked him, where is this surge coming from? Because in theory, if you have the candidate, Sam Brownback, coming out to his people and saying, hey, it didn't work out for me, I like John McCain, go support my buddy John McCain. Well, if you look at our numbers, clearly that hasn't happened. So McCain has gone either flat or down since Brownback dropped out, despite the endorsement, whereas Huckabee's really soared. You okay?
And we just hit that line on the ball.
I'm paying for these microphones. The Oprah phenomenon kind of reminds me of something I found in Davenport last week, and that was, I went to a Bill Clinton event. Actually, it was Muscatine, not Davenport. And I met people in the crowd that were really excited that Bill Clinton was there, and he was the best president ever, according to the folks in the crowd. But not all of them were automatically on Clinton's side. He got them to the door. He got them to listen to his thing. That doesn't necessarily mean he can convince them to vote for his spouse. And I think the same thing, I think Obama's right. Oprah brings people to the door, and it's his job to seal the deal. You kind of could see the same thing with that endorsement.
If your issues are the mounting debt, which is have an effect on the dollar and everything else economically in the country, and places us in a weaker world position, and brings to the forefront other foreign countries. And in addition to that, the political infighting and the government's inability to govern because of politics, if those are the two main issues, what candidate in either party would best have answers for that?
I think if you take that combination, and if you're looking at a Republican candidate, I think then perhaps the saleable one would be John McCain. That if you're looking at somebody who can, who's talked the great game about transparency and earmarks and the burgeoning debt, and at the same time, has been able to go reach across the aisle. That having been said, the question is how many people are looking for somebody like that in an increasingly polarized kind of political atmosphere of Washington, and where working across the aisle was almost traitorous at some points.
I would agree that the professional politicians themselves are more polarized than the American electorate is generally. There are a number of reasons for that. We can go into later if you want. But much of your question reminds me of the Ross Perot argument in 1992, that the American people are good, but their government in Washington is a mess. And my reaction then, which is in some ways my reaction to your question, is if you want to understand why government in Washington is a mess, go home and look in the mirror. Remember Pogo? We've met the enemy and he is us. For example, with spending, everybody wants spending. But you see, in my district, it's necessary. In your district, it's pork barrel. Multiply that 435 times, okay? I remember being struck, I hadn't been in Iowa that long, but I think it was in '88, Jim Ross Lightfoot was running in the old 5th District in the southwestern part of the state, and Des Moines was part of the media market, and he had a bunch of senior citizens on. Now, there weren't many people more conservative than Jim Ross Lightfoot in the U.S. House at that time, among Republicans at least. And the seniors, in his ad said, Jim's great, we like good old Jim Ross, he has brought so much money from the federal government home to our district. This is a conservative who's supposed to be against that sort of thing. So both parties spend the money, they just spend it on different things in different ways. And the reason is it pays off because that's what the American people want. So again, I'm not trying to say you have a bunch of Greek gods running around clothed or unclothed in Washington, but to a great extent the problem is at home.
That was an ugly picture.
I know that. Remember Wilbur Mills, you know.
The process. A lot of us have traveled around many parts of the state. We'll just kind of work our way down. What do you find to be the most fascinating about the process, the caucus process itself?
About the campaigning on the way to it? Well, I mean, I arrived in April, and so I just started going to these town hall meetings immediately. And I was stunned, to be honest with you, that some of the cliches about Iowa turned out to be true. And I'll always remember...
Which ones?
Do go well, no, but it's a real positive one, actually. I remember going to an event for Senator Clinton, and it was in April, maybe the first week of May. It was in that period, and there was a woman in the crowd, and she had a button on, and the button said something about cowboy diplomacy or one of these anti-Bush slogans. And Senator Clinton's working her way through the crowd, and she shook hands with this woman and said, "I like your button." Well, later she shakes a million hands. She gets up on this little tiny stage, and during her speech, in the middle of the speech, Senator Clinton stops and she says, "And we can't have cowboy diplomacy like this button over here that I saw said," you know, and she kind of singles out the woman. And so I went up to the woman afterwards and I said, "She got your vote, huh?" And she said, "No, I'm still reading her book. I read another book about her, and I'm reading her book, and I've only met John Edwards twice, and I still want to meet Richardson. I saw him in the crowd, but I didn't meet him. And I still want to meet, you know, Obama, and I said, "What do you do for a living?" And she said, "I'm a retired school teacher like everyone else in Iowa." And she said, "And I believe in doing my homework." And so I gave her my card, and I'd given them my card like this to a lot of undecided voters like her. And I said, "When you make up your mind, call me." And you know, all these people, all these Iowans I've met, they're calling me like 6 months later saying, "I told you I'd call. You wanted to know. I read the book. Yes, I'm going to support Senator Clinton," or "Yes, I'm going to support someone else." In this case, she is going to support Senator Clinton. I thought it was, you know, I thought I would have known that. But the people in Iowa take this stuff seriously, and it's not a lie.
Now you've stolen my thunder. I moved here in 2001, so I just barely missed the 2000 caucus. But so only going through it last time in this campaign, that's the thing that I think is the most impressive. But I think that the thing that I'm most impressed, not only that are people willing to go visit so many different candidates, but when we look out in TV, we call it cutaways when we're shooting the candidates up here and we get a few shots of the crowd, you know. We try not to get people eating food or sleeping or whatever the case may be at the time. it's always cool to look out and see people take notes. And I think that's the one thing that surprised me the most. Because I assumed that a lot of people would be showing up at these events with, especially the more popular candidates, you know, snapping pictures so they can send to their families and everything now, especially with the new digital cameras, you can just email them right away or whatever. But I think I've been most impressed with how many people are sitting there with a piece of paper or a napkin or a book or whatever they're doing, just jotting down notes the whole time.